after days and days of speculation, we are finally here. Suzuka is coming up, Yuki Tsunoda is in the Red Bull car, we can now finally start to calm down. Oh, who am I kidding? How can I calm down? Because we're at Suzuka, it's my favourite! And Yuki, is he gonna score though? Please, tell us your thoughts! Okay, we'll get this out of the way since I dedicated a whole video on the matter yesterday to ensure we talked about other things besides Yuki. I mean, there's of course the matter of the white ball that was just revealed, including the racing suits, and that really nice little pink feature of Haas. We'll get to that in a moment. We'll finish off the Yuki part by just expecting, well, what are his prospects for the Japanese Grand Prix? In my honest opinion, the fate of Tsunoda at this track is going to be tricky to assess since we are potentially headed for a wet race as the forecast is still pretty confident of water influencing the race in some shape or form. To be fair, I do think Yuki stands a decent chance of keeping it together and pointing in the right direction since he did do pretty well in Melbourne. Well, I mean, that is until the pit wall at Racing Bulls completely did him a disservice and he fell out of the points. But perhaps maybe with a more sturdy and robust strategy department over at Red Bull Racing, Yuki might stand a chance if he does qualify well. Quite frankly, getting out of Q1 would be an achievement. It just means that we're in a bit of a bind here, folks. We're not exactly sure where he's going to end up. I mean, are we expecting barely anything, or are we expecting that podium that he dreams about? But the brass tacks is this. I reckon that he could be happy with getting into Q2 in his first race with the senior team and finishing maybe somewhere in the region of 9th place or something like that. Couple of points. You might not think that's something to be proud of, but given the struggles of Lawson when he was essentially stuck to the back and started twice from the pit lane, coming away from the Japanese Grand Prix with maybe a couple of points to your name with Red Bull Racing, that would be a fairly good start. In fact, it would be a huge start. But then again, this is the human side of it all. We're all quite frankly just happy to see Yuki Tsunoda being at the senior team after having done the time. In fact, that's something I just wish to clarify. That's the reason why I got on board the Yuki Tsunoda hype train, is that, put simply, he had done what was expected of Red Bull juniors or participants and associates, be it from Honda or otherwise, to justify a chance with the senior team once it became available. Ultimately though, I, and you probably, just want Yuki to have an uncomplicated weekend where he can take in the crowd's support, adulation, and celebrate with them, finally making it to the senior team. But there is a small part of me that, in the midst of all the presumptions that he may explode over the radio, which he won't by the way, I do want him in some small way to just prove Christian wrong and, here Yuki, I'm packing for you. But then I may have to put the egg away again because we did actually see the 2025 white ball be unveiled and I'm weak at the knees. Oh, Turkey 2021. That white ball, get out of here. You suck in comparison. Now give credit where it's due here. This is how you pay tribute to your working relationship with Honda. There is so much more going on here, whilst also there being less going on. It goes to show what you can achieve when you just take out the Red Bull yellow, white with a dark red metallic finish, the bodywork panel eyes standing out more than usual, and seeing the original Honda logo and original Honda text on the engine cover. This is it. Look, I know that this is providing a really welcome distraction for Red Bull Racing, some positive headlines in the midst of Yuki Tsunoda's promotion, it pushing to the side Liam Lawson's demotion, the question of Max Verstappen's faith in the overall project. Those are slowly becoming memories of the past, which they shouldn't be, by the way. But at the same time, as me trying to become an aspiring motorsport journalist from on top of a ladder, as well as a professional yapper, I do have to give Red Bull credit with what they've done here is masterful. Quite frankly, I think it rivals the Golf McLaren of Monaco 2021. Let me know in the comments, do you think this actually stacks up to that McLaren, or do you think that Golf is still reigning supreme? Because this is seriously such a loving tribute to the Honda RA272. I just can't look at the previous one in the same way ever again, especially when you couple the clean design on the RB21 with the ridiculously complicated aero pieces from the RB16B. It just looks like art, this brand new one. It feels more authentic. It makes the old one look lazy. Oh, let's just paint the blue white instead and put some Japanese text on the background, you know, saying thank you. You know, it was nice, but, you know, it's absolutely minuscule in terms of effort in comparison to what we've got on here. This needs to be preserved in art form. It needs to remain in Honda's headquarters as a perfect summation of their relationship together. In fact, he actually, I think, has 60 on the front wing to celebrate 60 Grand Prix victories with Honda power. And what really helps sell it is that Yuki Tsunoda is in the car, and the fact that at the Goodwood Festival of Speed last year, he actually drove the old Honda F1 car, which looks pretty similar, in fact almost bang on, to what this F1 car looks like. It's all coming together for Red Bull if Yuki can score points, and I'm pretty sure the team is going to do everything in its power to make that happen. More positive headlines, turning things around. Maybe Helmut Marko may say some nice things, or not much at all, and just saying, Yuki's a different Yuki, a great driver. Don't you worry though, I'm not going to ignore the Haas, because my goodness, this is a beauty in a different way. Sure, the 2025 White Bull is just pure art, class, elegance, a fitting tribute to their Honda working relationship. But with the VF25, the Haas car, it just looks good in a different way, artistically whimsical, eccentric. Sure, it is leaning on a Japanese trope, but come on, it's a beautiful trope to use, and slightly more original, and hey, I'm not complaining about this. This looks wonderful. I mean, sure, the only nitpick I can have is that the numbering on the nose cone is a little bit lost. It doesn't kind of blend in well with the Haas black, but oh my goodness, that pink. It's so vibrant, BWT can't hold a candle to it. There's no over-the-top motifs alongside it. It's just cherry blossoms with pink Haas text. Love it. This is an absolute banger. It's so good. Quite frankly, I think it's one of the best special liveries I've seen in a very long time, if not ever. And it also goes to show you can have fun with the team's identity whilst also maintaining the identity. And I also had in the back of my mind just playing Cherry Blossom Estie. But yes, enough about liveries. There is another thing that I wish to share with you, which is a developing story, but one that is kind of fascinating, yet also not, especially if you are a person who the strolls are not exactly your cup of tea. Because Aston Martin, as we know it, is no more, kinda, sorta, financially speaking. I'll start off by saying this. No, Papa Stroll is not giving up control of the team. In fact, he's increasing potential control in the team by upping his stake. Don't worry, I'll try and explain this as best I can. Now, when I saw the car company Aston Martin, that's Aston Martin Lagonda, the Grand Prix team is a different entity, albeit owned by the same executive chairman, that once it was becoming evident that they had huge amounts of debt, racking up apparently to almost $1 billion, that something would have to give in the commitment of the Formula One team to pay off some of that debt. And sure enough, it's happened that the stake the car company has in the Formula One team is up for sale, and hoping to raise something in the region of $74 million. Then it may mean, technically, Aston Martin, the car company, has no stake in the Formula One team that brandishes its name. In theory, it could be just a brand partnership or something like that, which may mean that Papa Stroll may just change the name whenever there is an interesting buyer or investor that is willing to dump in hundreds of millions of dollars for the honor of naming rights or something like that. It does throw into question the identity of Aston Martin in the sport, not the team, Team Silverstone. So in short, the Stroll family may be regaining more control of the team, having given some stakes to other investors whilst the times were really good and the value of Formula One teams increased. And it might also explain why Lance feels a little bit more confident. He's starting the season off in better spirits. The future of the team may look more solid and his place within it. But okay, some eyes on the race itself. This being my favourite track, I am just pleased to be even covering it in general. I will be covering my top 5 picks in a moment, but in terms of drivers I think maybe in the chance of scoring points, if it turns out it's going to be a wet race, or a wet race that then becomes a bit drier, then I expect Kimi Antonelli to once again score some points this weekend. Do I think he's going to be in the top 5? I'll tell you right now, no. But he will certainly score a decent chunk of them, and maybe just get driver of the day for some reason. He will do his part and pick up some more points from Mercedes and to back up Russell in some shape or form. I would have said a top 5 finish had he had that potential Super Formula test back in the winter alongside Oliver Behrman, but unfortunately, due to other circumstances and the fact that he was having some illness at that time at the end of the F2 season, and therefore, despite his remarkable feats in Australia, I don't think he will be getting in the top 5 today. I do, of course, expect Lewis Hamilton to be scoring some points at the Japanese Grand Prix. It is a track that he does love, he holds in high regard, but at the same time, Ferrari's not exactly sure where it really stands in the pecking order, especially when it's wet, and as we saw during the Australian Grand Prix, the wrong strategy call did compromise Lewis Hamilton's efforts to maybe try and get some valuable points and finish ahead of Leclerc. Could the same thing happen here? Or have they knuckled down and gotten their act together, and they'll come back swinging to try and redeem the shocking situation that was the debut of Lewis Hamilton with that team? But as of now, given how tight the competition is and how certain drivers really excel on the wet, I think only one Ferrari will get in the top 5, and it won't be Lewis. It'll be close though. But Charles Leclerc also has bones to pick with his teammate, as well as wanting to try and redress the balance for his own sake and championship claim. Aston Martin might continue to surprise, with Alonso particularly keen to start gathering some points after 2 non-finishes at a track he does have fond memories of too. And not to mention, he does have some solid performances here whilst racing a green car. Could Lance maybe lock in a double points finish for the team? Maybe. If he does, it will help my theory, that's for sure. Do I think that they might be able to get some points here at the Japanese Grand Prix, the home of their team principal, Ayo Komatsu? Well, I do think one of them will get in, and it will be Estie because, well, he does have some good experience here. So I don't think points will be forthcoming for Oliver. He'll give it a good go, though. I think he will certainly be maybe like, 13th, 14th or something like that. Respectable, but not a points-paying position. Only one Haas this time around. As for Alpine, Racing Bulls, well, the French team, I do think that points may be eluding them once more, although they might give it a good effort in qualifying because Pierre can get that car into Q3. It's just a question of making sure that it stays there. That seems to be the issue. They've got some stuff to do. And this might help Jack Doohan's case that if Pierre is struggling in that car as well, and that car is just simply not capable of scoring points, it might buy Doohan some time, which is always very helpful for a rookie. And we all know the situation with Racing Bulls at the moment, that the car has potential to qualify in Q3, and quite decently and convincingly as well. It's just a matter of converting that result in qualifying to the race with the right strategy calls, something which has probably lost them a good dozen points or something like that. At the very least, Racing Bulls should not be in 9th place. On merit, they shouldn't be there. They really need to get their act together, especially now they got Liam Lawson back in the team and they're looking to try and help raise his stock back up in Formula 1, where he can actually just get his head down, knuckle down, lock in, and just try and find some way to own what he said in the past and reimagine his image. Williams? Well, I would hope that Carlos Sainz can regain some momentum after his lucky point amidst the classification shuffling, but given how strong the midfield is, I think Williams' chances for points will be lower than at previous circuits, especially if Yuki Tsunoda can get the second Red Bull racing car back into the points where it rightfully belongs. I do think this year Williams has more chances of scoring points. I mean, they've already matched their 2024 tally in 2 races alone, but the opportunities for them to get these points will become that little bit more complex. Now Red Bull might be firing on all cylinders once they get their act together and the development starts to shift away from Max and becomes a bit more well-rounded, as it should be, amidst all of the other teams. Williams, I do think they'll get one car in the points, but it won't be a high points-paying position unless the weather throws a curveball and some of the higher-up teams have some DNFs or crashes or incidents. Williams might capitalise on it, it's hard to say, but I don't think that it will be as bountiful as we've seen with Alex and Australia and China. But it is evident that Williams is trying to really build up its image more and more and more, because we've seen in recent news that Claire Williams, the former deputy team principal of the team, is now a brand ambassador for the likes of Santander, a major sponsor of Williams. In my mind, it's only a matter of time that we formally see the former lead of the Williams F1 team returned to Grove in a full official capacity as an ambassador and representative of Williams Racing. That the family will be formally returning to duties with the team that bears its name. That Doralton Capital will be more than happy to enable James Vowles to fully lean into the Williams legacy, because that's partly why people are so behind them. They want to see this legacy team back on their feet again. And if the Williams family are now back in and fully immersed in the experience on the main stage, that's brilliant. More good news for Williams. But I've got good news for you, because it's time to get to my top 5 predictions, and here they are. It's becoming more and more evident that over the course of a race, McLaren has really got it in the bag, especially when it comes to tyre degradation, the flexi-wing debate proving to be no match for them. And I do think it's going to be a bit back and forth as to who will be leading a McLaren 1-2 at this particular race, because back in 2023, where times were good and development was really looking on the up, they were a double podium finish behind Max Verstappen, which was really impressive. And therefore, I do think Lando Norris will bounce back and win this year's Grand Prix, with Oscar Piastri a very close second. It's not going to be a cakewalk for Lando, absolutely not. Oscar has proven that he is here to try and win and stake a claim for the championship as well. Given the fact that Lando Norris really kept pushing the car, even though it was prone to potential brake failure and catastrophic failure at that, this may mean he will go hell for leather at this Grand Prix, put the car on pole, not bottle the start, reign supreme, and use those rules to great effect, and therefore come out on top. Really respond to the incoming challenge that is Piastri. Even though last time out, Lando was not quite as stable as he was in Melbourne, if the conditions prove to be similar to what we saw in Albert Park, this may work out in the British driver's favour. That he has the experience, he has the capability, he has the car handling, the car behind him to be able to capitalise and convert another pole start. His starts have improved, even though people are not willing sometimes to admit it. That he has worked on that in the winter, as has Piastri in working on his own foibles. So these two drivers are really pushing the boundaries, and McLaren are going to capitalise on this in spades, with another 1-2, with Norris leading the charge this time around in response. It is going to be, I think, tit for tat in the beginning races of the season, but given the affinity that Lando has for this track, I do feel like he might have the edge here. He has that additional experience over Oscar. Because in the midst of all of this, Lando's adaptive abilities in the corners and ability to brake really, really well, as proven by testing them to the limits in Shanghai, then I feel like that might be really good in the likes of, you know, the start-finish straight and various bits and pieces where you do need to be a dab hand on the brakes. And hopefully he will be able to make the tyres work and make sure that he doesn't end up suffering what he did behind Lance Stroll in the sprint and muck up his front tyres or something like that, because the tyre stress at Suzuka, according to Pirelli, is rated at maximum rating. So that is going to be something to consider as well. And this will benefit McLaren because it is incredibly forgiving on its tyres, especially in the twisty-turny sections. So yes, I think it's safe to say Lando will win this Grand Prix, in my honest opinion. But not far behind him, probably within like 3 or 4 seconds, maybe managed perhaps holding positions, etc. I don't know. Oscar Piastri with another solid finish and really staking his claim for the championship, maybe becoming the challenger and then leapfrogging past the likes of Russell. Because let's be real, the Australians 2025 campaign didn't get off on paper to the best start, P9 in his home race, but you've got to look at the application and motivation behind it. That overtake on Lewis Hamilton at a place where you really shouldn't overtake, that's going to go down in history as one of the most daring, especially of this season. I really hope it wins Overtake of the Month. And especially off of the back of a breakthrough race in China. This was his most dominant race victory in his short career. Baku, that was great with Charles Leclerc. And then, of course, the likes of Hungary, that had its awkward nature with the whole swapping positions and Lando and all that stuff. This one, at Shanghai, was completely clean, deserved, no complications. And that will really carry momentum into the Japanese Grand Prix. All of the issues that he had with tyre management, qualifying, it's seemingly a thing of the past. That this might be an Oscar which can really bring it to his slightly more experienced teammate. And that is going to benefit McLaren wonderfully. They will definitely get over the 100-point barrier in just 3 races. And in the midst of Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull trying to figure out where they are in the pecking order, this will allow McLaren to get some breathing space, especially if they catch up those 3 teams. But then again, the wet weather may throw a curveball here. And it might not be enough for Oscar to be able to come good, but then it might. Who knows? It all depends on strategy calls and whether or not McLaren actually allows them to race. Because it makes you wonder, what would have happened had he not gotten the whole position instruction from his race engineer Tom Stollard and really gotten on the back of Lando and maybe had done the overtake? That is something to consider. We might see this being emulated again at Suzuka. But these uncertainties, these are all here to play on our minds, and we are here for it. This could end up being even more spicy, but it would be foolish of me to say that a McLaren 1-2 is impossible. But it would also be foolish for me to say that a Max Verstappen podium finish would also not happen, because I think it will. Because Max here, I predict, will be 3rd. If this forecast does hold and it proves to be a really wet, tricky race, Max will be on it, especially with this more reserved, pragmatic mind, which is actually leaving Dutch journalists flabbergasted with how calm he's being throughout all of this, that he may have finally gone into the engineer's brains, Pierre Vacher, convinced them to actually do something with the car instead of just blaming the second driver. Maybe there's been a corner turned. that maybe Max has finally gotten through to them, and it might lead to some setup changes, which might yield some more performance and potential at a track which he also loves. I probably think it's going to be a distant third. It is between Piastri and Norris at the top, but third place in front of George Russell, who I'd peg for fourth place, certainly plausible, and I think George Russell will be more than happy to finishing right behind Verstappen, and so will Mercedes. Sure, it's not going to be maybe a hat trick of podiums for Toto's team, but given where they are right now, how solid they are, how reassured they're looking, that Mercedes are being actually looked at and taken seriously, especially when they were really concerned about what would happen with their image post-Lewis Hamilton, things are going gravy for them. A fourth place amidst such strong competition, that's fine, that's okay. It's that consistency which gave Mercedes hope in the midst of 2022 when they really had to have a reality check. That first half of the season, George constantly plugged top 5 finishes. He's doing the same here, providing the team a good baseline and a reason to feel confident. Again, in Shanghai, George got a 10 out of 10 rating from Toto. And you know Toto Wolff, he doesn't exactly give 10 out of 10s. In fact, he never does, because there's always room for improvement. But by Georgie Porgy, yes, he did so well. I'm so proud of him. Yes, I'm going to chuck him out in favour of Max. No, it's not going to happen. It's really not going to happen. And I think Max knows it. But again, if the weather does turn a bit rubbish and gets really rainy and changey, then this will really help Georgie Porgy, because this is something he loves. The feelings in his bum and the steering wheel, they really play a part, and he can make these calls quite rationally and calmly. It's just a matter of whether or not the pit wall actually allows him to be able to be his own man and really make these calls instead of just ignoring it, relying on the data a little bit too much, and then asking him to box anyway and undermining him. He's meant to be the team leader. Allow him to lead. And if he can, then this might provide Mercedes those few extra points that may pay dividends in the constructors and allow them to maybe finish ahead of Red Bull. Sure, I predicted Red Bull would finish 4th in the constructors, but that was before Yuki was given the call-up. And Ferrari in 2nd place, I mean, that was before the reality checks that Ferrari have had, and where they are, that 2020 was a stronger start than what we've seen right now in terms of operationally and how they've conveyed themselves in terms of the technical development, because come off it, a double disqualification? I don't think that's ever happened in Ferrari's Formula One history. And surely they're going to be rebounding in Japan with a decent finish, respectable. I don't think they're going to be challenging the likes of McLaren or Max Verstappen, but to try and get one car in the top 5 amidst all of the chaos, confusion, tension, that'll be something. It'll be Charles Leclerc the one to do it, because China, all of the stuff that was going on behind the scenes, including the misrepresentation of the F1 team radio and their broadcasts, this is something that I think Leclerc will want to address, that to respond to a potential threatening from Lewis Hamilton's side of the garage for Ferrari domination and becoming the apple of their eye. Sure, Lewis Hamilton has talked immensely about what he would like to do with the company, making his own modern version of the F40 called the F44. I mean, that's not exactly a surprise. Michael Schumacher's worked with them before to make classic cars of their own. The FXX, anybody? He even drove it on Top Gear. The fact remains, though, is that Leclerc is still there. He is still il predestinato, and the Tifosi will still want to see that he does well. He will not want to be put in Lewis's shadow like George had to be for the better part of 3 years. So therefore, he will rise above it. He will make use of the fact that he's so embedded in Ferrari culture to get that top 5 finish, but only barely. With Lewis, I think it will be a 7th place finish, but if it's completely drama-free and he can just get on with it and rebound from the really up and down topsy-turvy situation that was the previous Grand Prix weekend, this will be something. Until Ferrari can develop an upgrade package to really get over the gremlins and their whole wet weather situation, I think this is the best we can hope for. And especially when it comes to the strategy, because I think if it had worked out, Lewis might have actually finished a little higher up than he did, 10th place in Melbourne. But you got to admit, all of the stuff that Ferrari have had to deal with at the start of the season, it's been absolutely wild. And another thing to consider that is quite wild of its own is the matter of Lance Stroll. Sure, previous form has resulted in him trailing off after a solid start to a year, but nevertheless, what he's done in these first 2 rounds has been a career best. To find out why I think there is more to Lance Stroll's recent form than meets the eye, including a race engineer's efforts, watch this video next, straight after this one.